Welcome back. We are still on Chapter 6, Lesson 7. We're going now to simplify expressions now that we know all about the vocabulary, terms and like terms, coefficients, constants. I'm going to be using that vocabulary. So let's look at our directions. It says use the properties to write an equivalent expression that has no like terms and no parentheses. So let's take a look at those directions first. We know our properties. We know we can use the commutative property. I'm going to commutative property. We can use the associative property. We could use the distributive property to move numbers around, and that's really good for using our mental math. Equivalent means equal, so we're going to find some equal expressions, and all of our terms are going to be combined. Okay, so if we look at number 1, x plus x, that means I have two variables that are alike. Those are like terms, so if I wanted to combine those, I would just say I have two x's, 2x. Okay, so if you want to see an example with an actual number, let's say let's let x be, I'm just going to make this up, 2. So if I have x plus x and I assign the number 2 to the x, I know 2 plus 2 is 4. Now if I go to the other side and say, well, I can call x plus x 2x, that means I would have 2 times whatever I call x. In this case, I'm calling it 2. And I know 2 times 2 is 4. So these are called equivalent expressions. These two expressions mean the same thing. They're equivalent. I've just simplified it by combining like terms. So that's really what we're doing. We're combining things to make it simpler. All right, let's, if I put my three x's together, I have 3x. And again, I can think about it by substituting a number in here. If I wanted to say, let's let x equal 5. Okay, so on one side, I have 3x's. And then the other side of the equal sign, I have 3x. So if I substitute a 5 for each of these x's, I know I get 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. On the other side of the equal sign, I'm going to take my 3 and multiply it by x, which I'm calling 5. And again, I get the same thing that's on the other side, 15. So 3x is just a simpler way of saying x plus x plus x. And remember, repeated addition is the same as multiplication. As long as all the numbers are the same, they're all x's, they're all 5's, we can go ahead and do the shortcut multiplication. All right, number 3, we have an x plus a y plus an x. Now that y has to be a different value from the x. The x's are the same, the y is different. So that's like saying this. I have an x plus a y plus an x. All right, I'm going to combine the two terms that are the same. So I can see that my x's are the same. So I'm going to put my x's together, x plus x, and my y is different. Okay, so just like I did in number 2, I combined my two x's. When I combine my two x's, I can call them 2x. Make it simple. My y is not an x, so it stays separated. 2x plus y is the simplest form of x plus y plus x. So again, I'll write it up here. I put my x's together. I just moved them. I used the commutative property, and I put the y on the outside. Now I can combine these two x's. It says no parentheses. In my final answer, I'm going to call that 2x plus y. All right, the next example is, you notice I have an x plus a y plus an x plus a y. So let me write that up here. This is how the example is. Okay, I can see my x's should go together because I want to combine like terms. So I'm going to think about this as x plus x, they're the same, plus y, and the y's are the same. Well, how many x's do I have? I have two x's. So that's 2x. And how many y's do I have? I have 2 y's. So my answer, again, I'm going to use my commutative property first. I don't have to know I'm using the commutative property, but when I move variables or numbers around, that's using the commutative property. I'm going to group them, so I'm going to associate them using the associative property. And now I'm going to simplify. I have two x's, so I call it 2x, and I have two y's, and I call them 2y's. All right, next one. This is not an addition problem. This is a multiplication problem. We have to remember when we have a number and a letter, a number and a variable together, that means multiply. And those parentheses also mean multiply. So I'm going to take my 4 times 6x and just separate each one. This means 4 times, parentheses mean times, 6 times x. So I ungrouped them. Now I'm going to group them back together. I'm going to find my like terms. Well, 4 and 6, remember our vocabulary, they're called constants because the 4 is constantly going to be a 4. It's not going to change. The 6 is constantly going to be a 6. It's not going to change. And x is our variable. We can assign any number to our variable. So I can group the 4 and the 6 together. And since it's multiplication, 4 times 6 is 24. So now I have 24 times x, and I can put those together by calling them 24x. So you can go ahead and write that next to the problem. So again, I called this 4 times 6 times x. I grouped these two. I multiplied the grouping. And then I put my 24 and x together because I know a number and a letter together mean multiply. All right, the next three I only gave you one line to do because hopefully by this point you can kind of think about these things in your head without having to show every single line. Okay, so 3 times x times 11. What two terms are alike? 3 is a constant, 11 is a constant. That means 3 stays a 3, 11 stays 11. It's all multiplication. Pay attention to the signs. So if I were to move the 3 next to the 11 or the 11 next to the 3, I know 3 times 11 is 33. And I still have times x, so 33 times x is 33x. The next one, I have a 7x, that's one term. My next term is 8, that's a constant. It's going to stay in 8, plus another x. So if I wanted to draw out what this meant, let me show you what this means. It means I have 7 x's, so I have an x, plus an x, plus an x, plus an x, plus an x, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus an x, plus an x. That's what 7 x's means. Plus I have that 8, which is just an 8. There's no x attached. Plus I have another x. Well, I want to move all my x's together. So if I were to put an x, move it over here, and I counted the x's, I would have these 7, plus that one more is 8. So I'm going to combine my x's. So I'm going to get 8 x's plus this number stands by itself. It's a constant, plus 8. So this means I've combined like terms. 7x plus x is 8x plus 8. Okay, the next one, we have a 14y plus an x plus a 22y. Which terms are like terms? It looks like the ones that are attached to the y. Notice it's all addition. So I'm going to add my 14 and 22y, and that would give me 36y. That means I have 36 y's plus an x. Okay, and finally, we have to use the distributive property for this next one. So if I multiplied the outside number by the first inside number, I get 8x, plus the outside number by the second inside number, I get 4y. And that is it. I am done. That's simplified. Okay, we will finish the rest in class. Have a good night.